Hi, welcome back to my channel. So today we are talking about the pursuer. Depending on if you've watched the withdrawer video, this might be part 1 or part 2, but they definitely go together. So I will link the withdrawer video below, and you definitely want to check that one out because most typically we have in a relationship a withdrawer and a pursuer. We'll get more into that later, but today this video is for the pursuer. This is the person who really wants to communicate and connect all the time, and their spouse might not have the same wants and needs, and that creates a disconnect between what the two are trying to accomplish. So this video is for you if you're that person who wants to talk and wants to connect and you feel like your spouse just doesn't understand you. Or this video is for you if you're the spouse and you're like, why do they want to talk all the time? Okay, so like I said, this video is for the pursuer. So the withdrawer video, I'll give you a quick little recap before you go watch it if you haven't already. The withdrawer is the person who withdraws emotionally or sometimes physically leaves the room, that sort of thing, because emotions are too big. That's the really rough explanation of it. So today, the pursuer I want to talk about because both sides can feel so misunderstood, and my hope and goal with this video is to help you understand maybe yourself a little bit better, but really I want you guys to understand each other because that gives us more empathy for our partner or our spouse and more understanding of where they're coming from. So this is from Emotionally Focused Therapy, which is a type of therapy developed by Dr. Sue Johnson. And it's very well researched and very, very, very well supported. Its success rate is very high for couples who go into EFT treatment with a therapist and work through all of the steps and learn the process, and the success rate is just really high for them being able to work through the difficult parts of marriage and understanding each other. So today, the pursuer is who I want to talk about. This is the person that really feels their feelings. They wear their heart on their sleeve. They're very emotionally tuned and oriented, and they, much more so than the withdrawer, they think about relationships a lot. So particularly if you are in a committed relationship or a married relationship, which is what this video is for, the pursuer is the one that's constantly thinking about, is the relationship working? Is it doing good? Am I doing what I'm supposed to? Are they doing what they're supposed to? Did this go right? Did that go wrong? They're constantly thinking about the nature and the health of the relationship because it's really important to them, and they really want to make sure that they're doing their part and that it's going as best as possible. So that's not to say that the withdrawer doesn't think about it and that they don't care. It's just a different wiring and a different orientation. The pursuer is the one that wants to have a lot of closeness, and just try to be open-minded with this a little bit in that this is different for everybody. You know, closeness doesn't always mean like, I have to be snuggling you on the couch 100% of the time. But the pursuer seeks out closeness in their own way more so than withdrawers tend to. Like I said in the withdrawer video that you'll watch if you haven't already, withdrawers tend to be a little bit more like they want to do side-by-side type of things, or they want to do partnered type of things, and that feels close to them. Withdrawers tend to be the total opposite. They want some face-to-face, deep, connected time. Conversation, closeness, all of that stuff. They want that deep, good conversation, and that feels close to them, and that feels super connecting and bonding to them. And this, as you can see already, this is where it gets to be a struggle because the withdrawer feels overwhelmed by that. They can feel kind of smothered by that, and so they withdraw, right? But then the pursuer feels rejected because in their mind, they're like, I just want to be close with you. You're my best friend. You're my person. You're my soulmate. You're my everything. Why would I not want to have this close, deep connection or bond or conversation with you? And again, it's not that the withdrawer doesn't want that. They just have a different approach. And so you can see the the struggle here because they both want closeness, but they go about it in very different ways. So if you're the withdrawer watching this, you're probably feeling overwhelmed a little bit just watching, right? Because you're like, oh, it's so much. Sometimes I feel smothered. I just can't take it. Like we had the same conversation a month ago, right? It can feel super overwhelming and it can feel like a lot, but stick with me for a minute. Your spouse is not trying to smother you. They're not trying to overwhelm you. They're trying to connect with you. And they are misunderstanding. At the moment of them trying to connect with you, they're misunderstanding what is going on in your emotional process, which is potentially the feelings of overwhelm, or maybe it could also feel like a lot of demand emotionally that you don't feel prepared to give, or you don't feel like you could understand how to give the emotional demand that they have for you. So that's totally fair. The way to work through this here is to find a way to express that to your spouse. So when your spouse is seeking out that deep connection that you just feel kind of flooded by, that you feel overwhelmed with, the best way to handle that is to kind of explain to them, whoa, can we slow down? Or maybe it's a change of how you have that conversation. Maybe if we have a pursuer who wants to have this deep heart-to-heart conversation and the withdrawer is just like, I don't know about this. A way to easily fix that is maybe instead of sitting on the couch, face to face, locking eyes that might feel too intense to the withdrawer could suggest, okay, let's talk, but can we go out to the shop and I'm gonna work on my woodworking while we talk? Or can we go on a drive? Or can we go fishing? I don't know. Can we go do something while we talk? Because that might feel a little less overwhelming or intimidating to them, right? And it's not shutting the it's not shutting the pursuer down. It's just saying, hey, here's a way that I might need to make an adjustment for me to open up to that part of connection. One of the biggest struggles that I think happens between this negative cycle that goes back and forth between the withdrawer and the pursuer is inadvertently both end up sending the message, you don't matter, right? And if you are in a relationship with somebody that you care about, if you're watching this video, you care about them and the relationship, even if it's struggling. And I think that this is where the heartbreak starts to happen, is that it's not intentional from either party, but it ends up sending the message, you don't matter. So when the withdrawer withdraws and is overwhelmed and shuts down and just kind of leaves the conversation or leaves the relationship in some way, that's a rejection to the pursuer, right? That's a heartbreak. And they might respond in anger and all sorts of other things, but ultimately it feels like it sends the message, I don't matter, right? When the withdrawer does open up, or they do make their attempts or their moves at connection in the best way that they know how, and the pursuer is fed up with it and they do reject them and shut them down and say, no, I'm not open to that, then it's a message to the withdrawer, you don't matter, right? So that is a deep-seated wound and hurt in a lot of relationships, that in many, many ways it can be communicated, you don't matter. And I think that is the hardest part of the withdrawer-pursuer cycle, is that it can send that message over and over and over again when we constantly miss what the other person is trying to say or communicate. So this is another tip for both of you, that you want to make sure inside you are answering that question, do I matter to you? You're answering that question for your spouse, right? So you can't answer it for them, but you can make sure that they know they matter to you, right? So let me go back to the suggestion I gave a minute ago. Let's say the pursuer really wants to talk about something and the withdrawer feels a little apprehensive about it, but they know, okay, maybe it's a good idea. This might be good for my pursuing spouse, but I do feel overwhelmed about it. So a way to let them know you matter is exactly what I said. Offer a suggestion to help it be a little bit better for you. To say, can we do this while we talk? Because that lets them know this conversation matters, what you're asking of me matters. I just am a little hesitant about it, so can we take a different approach, right? That's the best way to handle it, because you're letting them know you matter and so does this conversation. I just need help, right? So pursuer, it's the same thing for you. Letting them know, okay, yeah, sure, let's make an adjustment on how we do this, or let's talk later. Whatever their request is, you being able to have some understanding or empathy for that is a really great way to answer that question. You matter to me, and your hesitation matters, and the fact that you are willing to have this conversation despite your hesitancy, that matters too, and I'm absolutely willing to make an adjustment, right? You have to let each other know that you matter. And there still might be disagreements, obviously. There still might be fights. There still might be some tension as you try to iron out this tug of war, right? The push and pull that you both feel. There still might be some struggle with that. But if you can keep in the back of your mind, I need them to know they matter. If you both can do that, then you have a much greater success rate of working through this negative cycle and figuring out how to create it to be a positive one. So, if you're the pursuer, here's what I want you to do. I want you to slow down. Like I said at the very beginning of this video, the pursuer is the one who's constantly thinking about the relationship. They're the one that reads all the books. They're the one that's more likely to be watching this video. They're the one that listen to the podcasts and all the things because they think about the relationship all the time, and they're constantly thinking and pursuing, which is a good thing, but they're pursuing the best they can for their relationship. That sounds great, right? And it is. It can lead to some struggle though when you overthink it and when you're overly pursuing, in the sense of it has now gone to the point of smothering your withdrawer and they feel like they have no place, right? So I don't want you to stop pursuing. We need pursuit in our relationships. It's a good thing, but you might need to slow down. It might be a little too much for your spouse, so you might just need to slow down, or maybe just take a step back and ask them questions like, hey, I really need these conversations, or watch this video, this is what I'm trying to explain to you. But what works for you? How can we have some of these better connections or deeper connections without you feeling overwhelmed, right? Just talk to them about it. And if it doesn't go right the first time, that's okay. Try again, because even that conversation is probably a little overwhelming for the withdrawer. Withdrawer, here's what I want you to know. Your spouse is not trying to smother you. It might not be your jam to talk about emotions in the way that they want to, or to have the deep conversations in the way that they want to. But I want you to remember that they are coming from a very pure place of trying to connect because they love you and because you do matter. And so they may not always have the best approach, but you have to be one to help teach them what is a good approach for you, what is a good way for them to be able to communicate with you and talk with you, and what is too much, right? They might need a little bit of guidance on that. So I want you as the withdrawer to speak up a little and try to say, hey, this is what's going to work better for me. All right, to wrap it up, I have a bonus tip for you. It might seem obvious, but trust me, with all the clients that I've worked with, and friends I have, and in life in general, it's not so obvious to us because we get wrapped up in our own heads so easily, right? We all do that. It is so much easier to see our own side than it is to consider our spouse or someone else's. We see our own side first, and that's just kind of our human nature, but we have to kind of unpractice that. And so my bonus tip for you is to be abundantly clear with each other. I'm not saying be bossy or whatever, but be very clear with each other and say, when you do this specifically, whatever it is, that is overwhelming to me. They might not understand that. The pursuer might be like, what? All I did was say hello. I don't know. But give them a very good, clear example, not in a fighting sort of way, like you did this wrong, but more of trying to explain, when this happens, I am overwhelmed. I'm flooded, I feel trapped, I don't know where to go, I don't understand my emotions, I don't understand yours, whatever it is, be abundantly clear, this is what goes on for me. okay? Pursuer, you be abundantly clear as well. When I come to talk to you and I'm coming to reach out and you shut down right in front of me and you leave and whatnot, this is what happens for me. This is what goes on for me. Maybe that's not what you mean, maybe that's not what you intend, but this is what happens for me. So how can we talk about it so that we're both okay, right? So my bonus tip, be abundantly clear and kind in that conversation with each other. Thanks for listening today. Like I said, be sure to check out both videos wherever you're at in that process. Share them with your spouse and watch them together, whatever it is. There's so much more information on this. I will most likely have more videos to come if not already, because there's so much to pull apart in the withdrawer pursuer. If you are curious about more resources for this, I have a couple things linked below, and